Hi, this is State of Mind with me, Richard Sefton. This is a podcast about talking to a friend, having a deep and meaningful conversation, having a chat with the neighbour, talking to your pets, talking to yourself. My ethos is that it doesn't really matter, just talk. If you've got something to say, or if you can lend an ear, then get involved. I think it's the best way to help improve our mental health, making sure that what's inside is brought to the outside so we can view it in a different way, we can look at it differently, and we can work on maybe improving those little things that are going on for us that have sat deep in our brains eating away at us. I have on my sofa today an actor, a singer, funny girl and a #1 selling author, a lady who has struggled immensely with her mental health over the years, but she is someone that I'm pleased to say I've known for about 10 years now and have some amazing memories with. So without further ado, welcome Victoria Knowles. How are you?
Hi, thank you. I'm very well, thank you. 10 years? I can't believe it's been 10 years.
It
My
might be
mouth just fell
longer.
open when you said that.
It might be longer, but when all those memories come up on Facebook, it's always about 10
I
years
know.
ago, something like that.
It's scary, isn't it, really?
But it was an amazing time.
It was.
Amazing time back then, in the midst of time, before the Olympics.
Before COVID, yes.
Yeah,
Before
BC.
lockdown. Yeah,
BC.
yeah.
10 years BC.
So, yeah, and thank you very much. Funny girl, I like that. Thank you.
You are a funny girl. Oh my God, you've had me
Oh,
laughing over the years. Oh, Jesus. Well, we'll get into that later.
we
You're
will.
a #1 best-selling author.
I
And
am.
your
Apparently, yeah.
yeah, no, you are. And your best-selling book, A PA Story, it's passionate, sometimes highly emotive memoir about your time working in the City of London.
Yeah.
What gave you the idea to put it down on paper?
Oh, blimey. In a nutshell, I found a really lovely boss, what I would describe as a normal boss, somebody who had respect for me, who listened to what I had to say, and was just very kind to me and never shouted at me unnecessarily or screamed in my face or tried to play mind games with me.
Wow.
I basically had sort of three bad bosses, all for different kind of reasons, but all really in the sort of bullying genre, I would say. But it wasn't just that everyone has a bad boss every now and again, or a grumpy boss. But I got to the point where I'd had three bosses, one after the other. And each time I was like, I've got to get out. This is awful. And I would go to the next job and then it would happen again, but in a different way, in a worse way. And it got to the point on the third boss where I was literally at the point of having a nervous breakdown and I actually had to walk out. I can remember I just left one evening from a particular job and I was like, right, goodbye, see you tomorrow. And my bottom lip was quivering and I just knew I was never going back because I couldn't. I burst out crying, phoned my mum, went to a pub, bought the biggest glass of wine and just sobbed down the phone to my mum. And for the first time ever, my mum said, you just can't go back. Your mental health is suffering. You can't. You need to get yourself better. Mm-hmm. And it was only after I'd started temping, because obviously I couldn't just not work. I had to pay the bills. Yeah. And it was when I was my first temp job and I hadn't temped in over like a decade. And I started temping because I didn't want the pressure of signing on the dotted line of a permanent job. Because once you've done that, you're kind of trapped in a way. Mm-hmm. With temping, it doesn't matter if you leave after a week. No one really looks at your CV and wonders why. And my first temp job was working for a chap who was just absolutely lovely. And it was almost as if I'd been in some deep freeze of pain and anguish. And I started to thaw out suddenly working for this guy. And for the first time in years, I didn't worry at night. I slept soundly. I wasn't relying on red wine to try and get me to sleep, to drown out the pain of working in these horrible environments. And it was only when I was sort of completely normal in my own mind that I thought, you know what, this cannot just happen, just to me or the odd person. I'm pretty sure there will be lots of people, whether male or female, who get bullied in the workplace. Mm-hmm. So I figured I would just start writing it all down before I forgot it all. And I remember lying in bed one evening and I just thought, if any good is going to come from everything I've just been through, if I could just help one person, if I could write something down, maybe write a book, and if somebody read that and realised that they too were going through the similar, the same thing or similar things that I was, if that could give them the courage to walk away from their job or their bad boss, then I would be happy. So that's what sort of inspired me to start writing. But then, with something like this, it's so cathartic, and it helped me immensely just writing it all out. And I think, most people who realise I've written a book, they're like, wow, that's amazing. So many people have got a book in their heads, but they never ever do it, because it really is a hard process to write a book. But when it's something that's happened to you and you've lived it and you're passionate about, or at least passionate about it not happening again, it just flows out of you. So that's how I started writing. And once I started, couldn't stop.
I wish I had that problem to get my book out.
Well, it depends what your book is, though. I mean, is it sort of... I think we've spoken about this before, though, haven't we? I'm sure you've said. In fact, I'm sure you asked me to write your book.
I did, because I'm
Which
lazy.
I'd be happy to. Yeah.
Basically. So let's go right far back in time.
Yeah.
How did you find yourself in the city in the first place?
So I had always, from a young age, wanted to perform, to sing, to act, to whatever. I can remember my mum said I used to sort of dance in front of the television with the old laundry basket thing on my head, and dancing, that was my hat. And I have an early memory of when I was about 7, I think, and it was one of those, you're in the car or wherever you are, and my mum said, "Oh, what do you want to do when you grow up?" And I remember feeling slightly sort of embarrassed about what I wanted to say, and I didn't quite know what she was, but I said, "Oh, what does that I didn't say actress, obviously, because I didn't know, but I said, what's that person, that Julie Andrews, what's she?" And my mum said, "Oh, she's an actor." And of course, she's an amazing singer as well. But I must have seen some Julie Andrews films, and I remember thinking, I want to do that. That seems like a lot of fun. And my mum said, "Yeah, you get paid for doing that." So that was it, stuck in my head. I want to act. And then at school, I was rather good at drama, they told me. So I just got it in my head that that's what I wanted to do. And I followed that path. I sort of did GCSE drama. I got into a college specifically for studying theatre studies. So I did English theatre studies. And from there, where did I go to? I was really naughty. I was lazy, though. I was very lazy. And half it, because it was around the time you're 16, you're discovering life and boys and having fun and drinking. I shouldn't really say that. I was 16, but a lot of people do it.
I can relate.
And smoking fags and trying to look cool. And so, yeah, I didn't really go to a lot of my lessons. And I remember that all the sort of college tutors said, "Oh, you're wasting your talents. You're very good, but you're not going to get much more than an E or an F in your grades." And I actually managed to pull it out of the bag at the last minute, and I actually got 2 Bs.
Wow.
So, but it meant that I'd already applied to a college to do an HND rather than a degree. But actually, do you know what? I think when it comes to acting, you don't really do degrees in acting, do you? So a higher national diploma was better for me, and that's what I ended up doing. I went to Stratford-upon-Avon College, and I had the most amazing 2 years just acting. We got complimentary tickets to the Royal Shakespeare Theatre and the Swan Theatre, and I hobnobbed with a few famous actors, around the back of the stage door. It was just an amazing time. Hobnobbed. Is that a thing? No. I don't even know what hobnobbing means anymore. I think it's just, chatting away with people at the stage door. And it was great. And I remember I went to an evening in Stratford-upon-Avon, it was called an auction of promises. And it's where loads of famous actors auction off for charity things that they'll do for you, or, tickets for this or tickets for that. And I ended up winning. It was the winning bid. I was a student, for goodness sake, and I had to wait until lot 51 because that meant no one else had any money left to spend. So I got the grand total of £71. Me and my friend Joe, we won dinner with Toby Stevens, who is actually the son of our Dame Maggie Smith.
Wow.
I know. So we had dinner with him and a lovely actor called Stella Gonay, who at the time was in the House of Elliot. Do you remember that show?
For that, though. You can get a cream for that, Stella Gonay. Yeah.
Oh,
I
a cream! I thought you said a queen.
cream.
You can get a cream for Stella
I do
Goat,
remember the House of Elliot. I loved the House of Elliot.
Yeah, so she was the blonde curly one. So she was there.
Absolutely loved the House of Elliot.
Yeah, it was an amazing evening. So yeah, there you go. That's by the by. But I had a great time, and that was it. I just thought my life was set. I'm clearly going to act and be discovered. But I felt there was one more sort of step to go, and that was really drama school.
Yeah.
And of course, I don't know if you know, but it is pretty difficult to get into drama school. You're up against pretty much thousands of people every year for sort of a small amount of places. And I auditioned for the Guildford School of Acting, which is primarily for sort of musical theatre, but, still really good to train there. And I auditioned and I got a place on the 3-year acting course. But that's when it kind of went a bit wrong for me in my life. And it's because I got a place, but the fees, I think it was about £7,000 a year.
Wow.
And I had no idea. I thought that you had to have all of the money up front. So like £21,000. And I was like, I don't have 21 grand. And my mum doesn't have 21 grand. And I didn't know anybody who was rich. And we just didn't have that kind of money. But my local council, God bless them, how kind. Shall I say who they are?
Local to where you were at the time?
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
So it was Wigan Borough Council. And I can't tell you how lovely they were. They had, I don't even think it's a thing anymore, but they had something called discretionary grants or discretionary awards. So I applied to them and they said, oh, come and audition for us because we can help with the fees. So I auditioned for them and they said, we can see you're talented. We can see your passion. We think you're really good. We're going to give you £4,000 per year towards your fees. So I was like,
amazing.
I know. Amazing. But again, I was only, how old was I? 19 or 20? And I had no guidance from anyone. I didn't know, how to make that work for me. But all I could see was the black and white of it. And I thought, well, that's lovely, but where do I get the rest of the money? And I ended up speaking to Guildford and I said, I've been offered this, but I can't get that. And therefore I think I'm going to have to give up my place. And they just went, okay, then. So sorry about that. And that really was like, I look back on it now and I can't blame them, but at the same time, I just wish someone had guided me and said, well, you don't need all the money up front.
Yeah.
Because it's a very long story, this, Richard. I'm so sorry. Very long story.
Fine.
Basically, I got in, obviously couldn't afford it, gave my place up, then spent the next year back up in the north, having lived away, having a lovely time in Stratford-upon-Avon. And I suddenly became really depressed and I didn't know it. Because for the first time in my life, I had nowhere to go. In my mind, I only ever wanted to act and that was my dream. And I followed all the educational path that I was meant to follow to get to where I wanted to get to. And suddenly I'm back living at my mum's. I have no other qualifications to fall back on. And I ended up getting temp jobs up there and I was just depressed. I just didn't know what to do. And I can't remember what came first, but I definitely suffered. And for the first time, where did I go? I went on a weekend with my mum. My grandma couldn't make it. And I ended up going to Bruges on a coach full of old people for a weekend, which might be nice for some people. And I'm quite sure I'd like it these days at my age. But back then I was like, oh, I'm just doing it as a favour. I'm just sitting next to my mum because she's got no one to go with. But I was ill. I got really ill. I got an ear infection.
Oh.
And I didn't know it, but it sent me crazy. I think it was a mixture of depression sneaking in. And I started to get something called depersonalization, which is where, and it all was feeding in from this depression. I didn't know where I was anymore in life. I just didn't know where I was going or where I was meant to go next. And I can remember being in one of these hypermarkets in Calais and I just lost the plot. I was in tears. My mum had to sit me down. It was as if someone had just put a sheet of glass in front of my face and muffled my sounds. And I've since looked back on when this happened, and I think when that happens, when depersonalization happens, it's because normally when you're feeling happy and well, you've got sort of an inner dialogue happening in your head, haven't you?
Yeah.
Whether it's, I've got to put the kettle on, I've got to go and pick up the kids, or I've got to do this, I haven't done that, damn, I haven't paid that bill. And I think when you're that depressed because you've got nothing going on in your life, your inner dialogue is silent. So everything else, all the other audio sounds, and especially in a hypermarket in Calais, these audio sounds of everybody talking, it suddenly amplified in my head. And I literally thought I was going mad. I genuinely panicked, and I just thought, I don't know what's wrong with me. And I was in tears. We went back to England. I was checked by a doctor. They said, actually, you've got an ear infection. And so that kind of made me think, oh, great, it's that. I'm not going mad. But the ear infection cleared up, and then, of course, nothing else did. And I just went downhill, really downhill.
Had you had depression before then?
No, never. I'd had your average, I'm feeling a bit today, Kevin and Perry. But this was full on, and it went worse. I can remember being in my bedroom at my mum's house, and she was out one evening at dinner with her friend. And for the first time, I thought, this isn't right, because nothing entertained me. I put the television on. I didn't want to watch it. All my friends were at university as well, because, of course, I'd gone off at the same time they had. Or I was meant to, sorry. And, of course, I couldn't go. My university would have been, my drama school.
Yeah.
So they were at uni. I would have been at drama school. And, of course, I was back up north then. And my mates weren't around. So I was just stuck at my mum's, not knowing what to do with myself. And I was in tears, crying. And then I got scared. I got scared of life. I got scared of wanting to go out. I was smoking fags like they were going out of business. And that's all I did. I sat and looked out my old bedroom out the window smoking and just wondering where life was going to take me. And I was only 20 or 21 at this time. Yeah. And I ended up going to the doctors. And I think because I'd had an ear infection, I became focused on that because I didn't know anything different. But I knew I felt weird. So I was focusing on that and I went back to the doctor time and again, and I said, I don't think I'm right. I don't feel normal. And I think it affected me physically. So the depression made me feel, as it can, sort of dizzy, just really dizzy, like I was sort of seasick. I just didn't feel part of the earth or part of normal society. And I think eventually the doctor, to be honest, she wasn't that helpful. She was kind of helpful to a point. And by the time I came back for the 5th time, she said, well, you don't want to go on antidepressants, do you? As if it was a bad thing.
Would this have been the early 2000s, late 90s?
So part of my story about the drama school is I do eventually go. And that I went in 1998. So this must have been 97.
Yeah, so before... Well, even now, mental health isn't talked about enough. But
this was a GP talking to me, and she made me feel so embarrassed almost to be back in her surgery, but I clearly wasn't right, and it wasn't the fact because I kept saying, "Can you please check my ears again? Can you check my ears again?" Because I fixated on that because I almost felt like
I suppose I could see the correlation there.
Yeah. And I was like, but she said, no, you don't understand. Your ears are fine. They've cleared up. There isn't an infection. And she even said to me at one point, she said, you just need to go for a walk. Go to the Lake District. That'll make you better. And I was like, and then she said, oh, you don't want to take antidepressants, as if to say, oh, you don't want to take antidepressants. No. But the very fact that she'd mentioned them made me think, oh, wow, okay, what is going wrong with me?
Yeah.
And she sort of shamed me. She made me feel ashamed that because of my age, that I shouldn't be going through this, that it's not normal. So I remember going home, but again, I was in tears all of that weekend. And then I made another appointment and I saw a different GP, and I cannot tell you what a difference it makes to have somebody who just understands.
Yeah. And
he was so lovely, and he said, I explained this weird sensation that I'd been getting, and he said, you're suffering from something called depersonalization. And it's when one or other of your senses is out slightly and you overcompensate, and it just doesn't feel right. The world doesn't feel right. He said, and you're also probably suffering from some kind of depression because, you've told me you were about to go here. You thought your dream was going to come true and now you're here and you don't know where you're going in your life. And he said, look, I do think that if you want to, you can go on to a course of an antidepressant. And there was kind of some stigma attached, but I think I was young enough to think, I know it sounds stupid, but I almost wanted to be different and say to my friends, yeah, look at me, I'm on antidepressants. Weirdly, I don't know why I would have thought that. But
no, I think I get that. I think I can understand that.
I almost felt like it's slightly grown up, because I would never in a million years have imagined me having to take something that I'd heard about, because I think Prozac Nation was out by then, and I'd heard about antidepressants. Anyway, I was in such a state, I just thought, well, yeah, let's do it. So I went on to, at the time it was called Lustral, which I think originally was, I was on sertraline. Sertraline hydrochloride, which is Lustral. Well, that's the generic name, and Lustral was the brand.
Yeah.
And it really helped me. And at the time, it was sort of, a 6 month, be on them 6 months and see how you are. And I actually did come off them after 6 months, and I didn't have any issues coming off them at that age, and I was fine and happy. And back to my original drama school story, I then was well enough to start thinking about what I would do next in my life. And that's when I started doing television extra work. And I met a director. So I ended up doing Hollyoaks a lot. I was always the drunk person in the pub in the background.
Well, that's how I know you.
Were you there too?
You're
so that was
the drunk person in the background.
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes in the foreground, of course, but in TV extra work, I was in the background. And wow, did I have fun! It was brilliant. What a giggle! I ended up doing Hollyoaks loads, Brookside loads, because Brookside was on at the time. And it's fantastic. What a giggle. So I did lots and lots and lots, and I met a director, and the director realised in one of the shots that he hadn't placed me on set. So I was kind of sitting there like a lemon, and they were about to shoot, and he went, oh, hang on. And he said, sorry, I haven't placed you. And then he said, what's your name? And I thought, wow, I've been discovered. He's noticed me. And it was really funny. We sort of got chatting afterwards, and he was like big to-do director on Hollyoaks and Brookside. And we got chatting, and I said, look, I'm trained, I've been to Stratford, I got into Guildford, but X, Y, and Z. And he actually was the one that encouraged me. And he said, look, I really think just go back to drama school, but don't do a 3-year course. Do a 1-year course, because it'll be cheaper, but you'll still get the exposure, etc., etc. And I don't know if they all do it, but Guildford do a 1-year sort of postgraduate course. So with his encouragement, I actually applied, and I got in to Guildford again.
Yay.
So I finally went, because you know what? I auditioned for Wigan Council again, and they paid all of my fees.
Really?
Yes. How amazing are they?
Well done, Wigan.
Big shout out to Wigan Council, because you were the best. They said, we can see you're still passionate. We feel bad that you didn't get to do your other course, but here you go. So they paid £7,500 for me, and off I tottled. So I did a year at drama school from 98 to 99. So that's where we're at so far.
Oh, that's amazing. I worked for Wigan Council when I first moved back up here.
Oh, did you?
That was a bit of a schlep, but it was...
oh, God, it would have been, yeah, for you travelling there.
Quite well, though.
Oh, pies.
So back to my
I never ate
question.
pies.
How did you end up in the city?
Exactly. God, it's a long time getting to this answer, isn't it?
It's all right. It's fine. I've enjoyed the story so far.
Okay, so let's nutshell it out. So I go to drama school for a year from 98 to 99.
Yeah, don't nutshell it. I'm enjoying the story.
Well, I graduated in 1999. Now, I would say that the problem with 1-year courses at drama school, and drama schools will hate me for this, but you just don't get the same amount of exposure at the end of your training or the opportunities as if you had done a 3-year course. And I kind of was aware of this, and I'm kind of not surprised. I think that, at the end of your training at drama school, you all do something called a showcase.
Yeah.
And so the showcase is where, well, you can imagine you're showcasing the talents of those graduating students, and a load of casting directors and agents come along and they watch your various monologues and duologues and showpieces. And then they rush to you at the end of the night and they go, oh, I have to sign you. You're so talented. But you get tons of those kind of people attending 3-year graduation shows. You get, I think, probably half of those people attending if it's a 1-year graduation. So your chances are limited. And I think also, again, I'm not speaking for all drama schools, this is just my experience, but in a 3-year course, I get the impression that in year 1, they break you down. They try and get you to forget everything you've ever known. So any natural instinct was taken away. Then they sort of teach you all the technical stuff and all the breathing and all of this. And then the 3rd year, they build you back up again as this wonderful, amazingly talented, super duper individual. And of course, with a 1-year course, you just can't do it. And I ended up feeling like I'd been broken down at drama school, but never been put back together.
Oh.
So instead of doing any of I think I'm naturally, God, this sounds big-headed. I think I'm naturally quite talented. I can do accents. I can get myself into, characters and be this person. But my breathing apparently was awful. I'd be being told that your veins are sticking up on your neck and your breathing's not right. And I'd be thinking, but in the middle of an argument, really, you wouldn't be thinking about your veins in your neck sticking up. But I ended up just coming out of there thinking, God, I'm rubbish. I can't act. So my confidence was really low. And I didn't get an agent. Barely anyone came to see our show. And so suddenly I'm in London, because most people move to London because they think that's it. Bright lights, big city, this is where I'm meant to be. And instead I found myself in London sleeping on a friend's floor for 2 weeks. I got a job at a telesales call centre, earning the grand amount of £5 an hour.
Ooh.
And I know, and that barely covered my rent. And then whatever I had left, I just go and get drunk in the pub on a Friday. Woohoo! And that was it. That's all I ended up doing. And I think the problem is that it's hard enough if you've got an agent and you want to act. You've still got to push yourself, even though you've got an agent doing stuff on your behalf.
Mm-hmm.
If you've no agent, you've really got to be on it if you want to be discovered. You've got to put the work in. You've got to apply for this. You've got to send your headshot out. You've got to get your CV updated. You've got to get this, that, and the other. And I just, didn't have the time. And clearly I was too lazy to do it. And I kidded myself that life was fun and I enjoyed doing whatever I was doing. And actually, I was just bumming about. I wasn't really doing anything, and I was temping still. And it was then that I decided that if I wasn't going to act, or at least do all the things that I think you are required to do in order to be discovered, then I at least wanted to earn money and have a good life. And with no official qualifications other than acting, because I'd been temping in sort of office roles, I thought, well, I'm going to try and get to the very pinnacle of an office career, which for me as a woman was being a PA, a personal assistant, because I knew it, you got paid well. And
that's horrible.
Yes,
I thought that as a pinnacle as a woman. Is the
PA.
PA.
Yeah, in the world at the office with I just thought, well, if it's admin, what's the peak of admin? So I thought, it's a PA. Yeah, I'll be a PA. I'll be a PA to someone famous. I'll be a PA to some, super duper high flying boss. And so I think my first permanent job was working for a high-end estate agents in Hampstead, which I don't know if you're aware, but in Hampstead, lots of celebs live, huge houses.
Yeah.
So I was on reception. I wasn't quite the PA yet. I had to start on reception. But it was great. All these people came in. I remember Sally from Coronation Street came in looking for flats.
Wow.
Tom Conti, the lead singer of Travis. What was his name? Fran Healy.
Fran Healy. My God.
So I was thinking, yeah, I've made it. I'm receptionist and I'm seeing all these celebrities. But of course, you've not really made it. You're just serving these people. And it's, I was still only getting paid whatever I was getting paid. I think about £20,000 a year or something, which I suppose, not that bad
Not bad,
in those days.
Yeah.
However, I got headhunted by the, who was it? It was the PR department of the estate agents. And they got in touch with me and they said, oh, we're selling, I think they were selling George Michael's house, actually. And they said, oh, we need, God rest his soul, lovely old George. Yeah. And they said, oh, we need a JPEG of his house or whatever, a JPEG image. And because I'd sent it to them in, I think, 2.2 seconds, they got on the phone and said, we've got a job. You're so fast and efficient. Will you come and work for us?
Wow.
And I thought, is that all it takes? Okay, fine. So I did. I went and then I joined the marketing department and I actually became the national advertising coordinator for this huge estate agent. And I had no experience whatsoever.
Wow.
But I was good on the phones and I was able to sort of put my acting skills to good use and sort of, get down with certain people, and I would be very, hoity-toity with the others, you can imagine, yeah. You get all sorts of people, rich, famous celebrities, etc. So I was able to sort of mix with them and be appropriate on the telephone and rah, rah, rah. So I was there for about 4 years, but that is the period of my life when depression came back.
Okay.
So, yeah.
When you were riding high?
Well, but riding high, you see, that's the thing, riding high to anyone else, but actually secretly in my heart, not doing what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And even then, I was always trying to do things on the side that were creative. So I actually started writing then, and I started writing a sitcom. So I wrote a pilot, and I ended up, I got introduced to somebody who worked in television, but it was the wrong kind of TV. It was sports television. But he was a really nice guy, and he said, I think you're really talented. He said, I think I'd like to try and get this off the ground. So I was doing stuff on the side, but I don't know, the fact that I was just doing this job daily that sounds very exciting, but actually was very formulaic. I could do it with my eyes closed at the end of the day. It was just pulling people's adverts together for selling their houses. Yeah. So you can imagine 4 years of that. For somebody who is creative, it just killed my soul. Yeah. And so depression, snuck back into my life. And I ended up also getting labyrinthitis, which I don't know if you know what that is.
I do, but I can't put my finger on it. I do know that. Inner
ear infection.
That's the one.
So I think I'd always had issues
with something similar. Yeah. And they thought it was that.
Oh yeah. I mean, I obviously, from the other story you heard, I had had ear infections, and I'd had them when I was younger. I mean, not to the extent where I suffered daily, but there was obviously something that I was, susceptible to. And so yeah, I had a really awful dizzy fit, like the whole room span like vertigo out of nowhere. I was with somebody at lunch one day and I went pale, and I just, again, what the hell's happening? And that's what triggered the depression again, like major depression. Yeah. And I had to go back onto antidepressants at that stage. And I think it's a thing. I remember looking up the help groups out there for people who suffer from labyrinthitis. Because it can affect you so much, and it sends you so, out of normalness that you really struggle afterwards to rebuild your confidence, because you get to the point where you're scared to walk down the street because you think you're going to fall over. You're that unsteady.
No, my best friend's got something called Meniere's, which is, I think, very close to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All of those things are very debilitating, and you can feel dreadful. And it says on any website that depression can follow labyrinthitis if you don't get the right support. And I did. So back on antidepressants, but I had a female boss where I was working, and she was just, I think this was the start of me just having really hideous bosses. I mean, she was a different kettle of fish, but I can remember I sat opposite her in the office, and I wrote to her on email because it was private. I didn't want to shout it across the office. And I said, oh, would you mind awfully if I have sort of next Tuesday off? I've got a doctor's appointment. And she just put her head across the desk and she went, why, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? You know, what are you going to the doctors for? And it was just, oh my God, so on her. And I sort of said, well, because you're not going on antidepressants, are you?
Oh.
And again, she was shouting out in front of the whole department as if to say, don't be an idiot. Why are you going on antidepressants? Don't do that. Don't go down that route. Oh, no. It was just unreal. Yeah. It was just hideous. And horrible lady. And I ended up going to the doctors and I did go on to antidepressants and they helped me greatly. But this was, I went on to Prozac this time. So the famous Prozac, fluoxetine. And I stayed on that for a very long time. And the only next time I sort of tried to come off them, I lost the plot because the withdrawal was so bad. I ended up staying on them. But that's another story, the whole withdrawal thing with antidepressants.
Yeah.
But yeah, so where are we at, Richard? Where are we at?
You're in your job.
Which part of my story? So yeah, I basically finished working there and then I got my first job as a PA, as a personal assistant. And I learned on the job. No, so I'd moved from Hampstead and then I moved to, the West End. I was near to Selfridges when I was working for the estate agency, the marketing department.
Okay. Yeah.
Then I got a job. Where was I? Bloomsbury. Mm-hmm. So I ended up working for somebody, first PA role, and learnt on the job. And wow, did I learn. He was an amazing man. He was so well connected. I mean, worked for royalty, an amazing chap, brilliant at his job and wasn't actively working, but he was on the, when people sort of retire, but then they're on the board of all of these amazing sort of institutions and whatever. So one of his roles was he worked on a member of the royal family's company. And he was just very well regarded. And I ended up being his PA and I stayed with him for about 4 years. And it was tough to an extent, but I wouldn't ever class him as a bad boss. He wasn't a bully. He just was, to the point, firm, but also very fair as well. But I sort of, again, after 4 years, I just thought, well, I'm not learning anything else. And I really wanted something new, a new challenge. And I ended up, I actually got a job working for, am I allowed to say names of people or not really?
Yeah, of course you are. Go for it.
I actually ended up getting down to the last two for a job, if not being offered the job, I can't remember, but the lady who used to run the Serpentine Gallery.
Oh, you can't say that.
Oh, well, I can't.
Said it now. Too late. It's fine.
But nothing bad about her.
Oh,
fantastic. It would have been an amazing opportunity. But because I was then suffering from anxiety because I was trying to come off antidepressants, I didn't go. I didn't go for the job. And this is how it can affect you, mental health in the workplace. I just was so anxious. I had lost confidence in who I was. Mm-hmm. And this was the period when I was trying to come off antidepressants and I was suffering all sorts of physical symptoms because I was trying to come off them. Mm. And so in the end, because again, nobody really, the GPs didn't really know about withdrawal from antidepressants. I wasn't getting any support. And with fluoxetine, so Prozac, it's one of the antidepressants that has, I think, the longest half-life of any antidepressant, which I don't know whether do you know about half-lives in antidepressants?
I know about antidepressants.
So the half-life is how long it stays in your system for after you've stopped taking it. So I think fluoxetine is a bit of a scary one for a lot of people trying to come off it because without the right support, you might just stop and you might feel that you're fine for 2 weeks, if not 3 weeks. But then it hits you because it's just one of those... I don't know. It's just one of those things with some antidepressants. And I didn't know. And I didn't really have the support. So, of course, anxious, didn't go for that job. Then ended up getting another job as a PA. for a very high flying PR guy whose partner was a famous fashion designer.
You can tell me who later
And
if you want.
I will. Yeah. I mean, this was in the book that I ended up writing, but obviously names were changed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought, this is it. This is brilliant. I'm going to be so excited, because not only would I be working for him on sort of the PR side, but I would be working on the fashion side and supporting his partner. So I left one job, went to that job, and this was in the city. So then I was in the middle of the city, you know, I think we were on like the 32nd floor of this amazing building. And, you know, we had access to a gym and a spa and free this and free that. And I got a clothing allowance for said fashion designer's clothes, which, to be honest, didn't really buy you much. I got about $2,000 per season. Yeah. Earring. No, I don't know. I just thought it was going to be an amazing opportunity, and it was the start of my spiral into hell, and what eventually made me write a book. Basically, I could tell you what happened, but you know it won't be in a nutshell.
No, I like it. I'm enjoying your storytelling. Another talent of yours. Another natural talent.
See, other people would just say, no, you just gas on, Vic. Verbal diarrhea. That's just my husband, though.
So you say that was your start of your years of hell?
Yeah, bad boss. Well, horrible bosses, really. He was a horrible boss. He was horrible. He was on the outside, smooth, charming, permatanned, attractive, you know, schmoozed people, you know, handshakes, But then treated some of his staff just so dreadfully. And for me, having been promised that I would do this, that, and the other, and be his right-hand person and work for his partner and I ended up doing nothing, which sounds just crazy. And, you know, how can you actually do nothing? But he would be sat in the office pretty much all the time, apart from when he had, you know, client meetings externally. But a lot of the time he was in the office to my left. And what separated us was, I don't know, 10 feet of carpet, and I was almost in some gilded cage. It was like he wanted to say he had a PA, because he'd never had a PA before me, you see. He'd shared one.
Okay.
And I think he just wanted his own PA, but it was literally, he just wanted a beck and call person. So if he thought of something he wanted you to do, he'd ask you to do it. But I'm talking like menial things like go and get my sushi for lunch, or, oh, I haven't paid that, could you just pay that? And he wouldn't share anything with me. So, you know, most PAs are meant to know where their boss is so that they can organise their diaries. He never told me where he was going. You know, I couldn't tell anyone where he was at any given time of the day if he wasn't sat at his desk. I don't know. He doesn't share anything with me. But then he also tried to control me. Oh. So eventually I wasn't allowed. And you know me, Richard. I'm gregarious. I love a giggle. I love a chat.
Absolutely.
I was not allowed to socialise with friends that I'd made in the office. I just wasn't. I ended up, a friend of mine used to come up and say hi to me, and I'd shoo her away. I was that petrified, because he was off his rocker. He would get really angry. I also was meant to work for his business partner in the agency that he owned. And when he used to ask me to do things, I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, yeah, I can do that. And then the other guy would call me over and sort of whisper at me so that I'd have to get really close to him. And he said, what are you doing that for? I don't want you doing... I'm not allowed to swear, am I, Richard? Am I?
You can swear.
He used to say, I don't want you doing shit tasks like that for him. What if I need you? I don't want you booking him an osteopath or whatever it was that he'd asked me to do. Wow. And I was like, but I work for him too.
What if I need my sushi?
Yeah. And he said, I don't want to have to find myself another PA in 6 months' time because you're doing fucking shit tasks for him. And he was so sinister and horrible. And then he started talking to me about the Stockholm Syndrome. And I was like, what? He said, you know about the Stockholm Syndrome, don't you? Yeah. You like it, do you? Is that what you want? Do you want it? He was just...
Wow.
mental and horrible, and I was so fearful of him, but I also needed the job. Oh yeah,
absolutely mentally abusive.
And he played games with me, mind games. He would lie about something, then he would sort of admit it, but in front of somebody else, so it made me look like I'd done something wrong. What did he do? Oh, probation period. I'd been there about 3 months, and you're meant to come to your end of probation at 3 months. And I remember him saying, oh, it was a Friday, and I was due to pass probation on the Monday following. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, I better sort of just mention it. And I said, oh, just about probation, do I get a letter just to say that I've, passed? Because you would presume he would have mentioned it beforehand if there was a problem. Yeah. And he said, oh yeah, I've been thinking about that. Yeah, I think I'm gonna extend your probation. Yeah, I'm gonna extend it.
Yeah, mind games.
And I was like,
completely.
Okay. And I went out to lunch with my friends from the office. That was the only time I could see them. And I was in tears, and I said, I don't know what he's doing. Why is this happening? And I ended up being brave, and I went back to the office and I said, about the probation, could I? Yeah, we've decided we're going to extend it. Yeah, that's the end of it. And I said, oh, but, could we discuss it? No, don't have time. And I tried to talk to him, and he screamed at me and said, can you see what I'm reading? Can you see what I'm reading on my screen? And he was reading something about the Bribery Act or whatever it was. And I said, well, can I at least have 10 minutes later? And it's very hard to, especially so long later, it's so hard to describe how horrible he was to me at that moment in time in an open plan office. But I ended up crying. I was in tears, and then he mocked me for crying and said, yeah, that's great, you crying. How the hell is that you helping me? How are you helping me by crying? It was just awful. And I sat back at my desk, not knowing what to do, where to go, sobbing. And he eventually sort of said, right, me and you in that office, 10 minutes. So I took in my little list of all the things that I'd been doing, because I wanted to say, look, I've not done much for you because you don't give me anything, but everything you've asked me to do, I've done very well. So I don't understand why you're not passing my probation. And I don't know what, I can't even tell you what he said to me. I described the whole meeting in the book as I came out of there feeling like, those adverts for Tango in the past, mm-hmm. where a little orange person would appear and slap someone around the face.
Yeah.
And it's, when you've been tangoed. I didn't know what he'd said to me. The only words I remember him saying, because he was so good at his job at PR, he just came at me with utter rubbish. Didn't let me talk, but I do remember him saying, I see you at 5:30 p.m. going for drinks with those girls. That's not going to happen again. And I was due to finish at 5:30 every day. Like, it's my life after 5:30.
Yeah.
But he was trying to control everything I did. It was a hideous period in my life. And I don't know, like I said, I can't really explain it properly.
You explain it really well. I'm riveted, and I can imagine how you must have felt. I'm actually hearing kind of Devil Wears Prada, but on acid.
Yeah.
That's what it's kind of feeling like.
It's hard to sort of put it across when you're out of that world years later and you're in a better place. But if I tell you that working for him in that environment, being subdued but also being given nothing to do, I was driven insane. So every single night I would either sob silently on the train, or I would hold it in and I would get to my flat door, like my front door of my flat, and as soon as I got in I would just collapse and burst out crying. And then I started drinking because it was the only thing that helped me escape, because I was just trapped. I was trapped in my head. And I know it's easy for people to sort of, keyboard warriors to say, oh, well, why don't you just leave? Why would you stay in a job, if it's not that good? But it's not that simple. No, when you're reliant on your job to pay your mortgage or your rent or whatever, and especially you don't want to leave a job so soon. My previous jobs I've been in for 4 years, one stint, 4 years, another stint. You don't want your CV to look flaky. You want to be employable. And all of these pressures on your head, you just think, well, I can't do this and I can't do that and I can't do this and I can't leave. So I think the only thing I could do eventually was start looking for another job. I couldn't just walk out. But that's, especially with a guy like that, trying to escape to go for lunchtime interviews or, sneaking out after work for an interview. Ugh, nightmare. But I did eventually, thank goodness, get another job. Thank goodness, but no, because then it was jumping from the frying pan into the fire. And I ended up working for an absolutely evil, evil, evil weirdo, basically. So yeah, that was boss number 2 I then ended up working for. And I ended up traipsing all the way out to, I think, Chelsea for a job every day. But it paid well. And I think foolishly, I just thought, well, if I'm going to get treated like this, I want more money for it.
Yeah.
And that was the mistake that I made, because the reality is that I'm just not built. I'm not built to take that kind of abuse. And I don't think anyone should be in a job. I don't care how much you pay your personal assistant. You shouldn't be entitled to treat them, really badly just because you paid them more money. But I got told that a lot when I was going to recruiters around that time. They described it as danger money, actually.
Wow.
So, yeah, if you start earning above, I don't know what it's like now. I don't think that the salaries have changed that much for PAs, but they were saying once you start earning sort of 50, 60, 70,000 pounds as a PA, the boss expects their pound of flesh. And whether that is that you will be the sounding board for their frustration, not the sounding board, sorry, the punch bag, I would say, not even a sounding board, but they're either going to scream and shout at you, or they're going to keep you working 24/7. You're on call, you basically don't have a life. And I get it. If some people are happy doing the 24/7 thing, that's fine. But I don't think it's fine to expect your PA to take your abuse because you're a powerful man and you're frustrated, no matter what you're paying them. So I was stuck, to be honest. I didn't know what to do. Again, I was suddenly qualified to be a PA, but then, what do you do when you want to earn more money? Yeah. But the only people that are paying that kind of money are just freaks and bullies and oddballs, Jekyll and Hyde characters. And that was the second boss. He was an absolute Jekyll and Hyde. He was older. He was in his 70s. And I thought, he'll be a pussycat. He looks really harmless. And he was just crazy. Yeah, he was, Again, very long story. I won't bore you with exactly what he was like, but suffice to say, again, I realised far too late for me to change my mind that he was going to be a nightmare. He had a PA before me, and she had been with him for 4 years, and I think you're lulled into a sort of false sense of security, and you think, well, he can't be that bad if someone stayed with him for 4 years. But she did a handover with me, and the handover, normally you'd be like a week, 2 weeks. It was a whole month for her to teach me exactly how he liked things. Wow. And she had, her office. So I got my own office, and I was like, this is exciting. I've got my own personal office. And her office was just full of filing. She was chaotic, utterly chaotic. Really lovely woman, but skittish. And I think he'd made her that way. Yeah. So I think she was paid well, and she stayed for the money, but I think he had sent her over the edge, and she had drawers full of notepad, like reporters' notepads. Yeah. And in it, I said, well, why have you kept them? What's in it? She went, well, it's everything he's ever asked me to do. I've written down, because he might pull me up on this a year later and accuse me of not having done it. So I want to be able to prove that I've done it. And my alarm bells were going, and I thought, who the hell am I going to be working for? Oh, my God. And he did turn out to be like that. He was just sinister.
These men are on major power trips.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Because there was no reason. I can't understand it, because there are ways of talking to people. But if you've got someone working for you and they've made a mistake or they've done something wrong, fair enough. Tell them off. But the guys that were being abusive towards me or bullying, like this second boss were, it was for no reason whatsoever. I was good at my job. I was efficient. I did everything that needed to be done. And he used to sort of swap from coming into the office to say, I can't believe what an amazing job you're doing. I never thought I could improve on my last PA, but you're fantastic. And then the next minute, he would be on the phone. So he was rich, and he had houses in all different places around the world, actually. But he had a country house and a place in London and a place in Scotland. So when he was in his country house, he would phone me and just be vile for no apparent reason. He would think of anything he could and accuse me of not having done it, even though I'd done it. And
the notebooks from the last PA.
Yeah. It's so strange. And I was in tears again, most lunchtimes. I was lonely. I used to go out to the local sort of park to eat a sandwich. I had no zest for life. This was around the time of the Olympics in London. Yeah. And there was Olympic fever and it was fantastic. And I got some tickets to go and see some things with my then boyfriend, who's now my husband. And I was just unhappy all the time, because even when it came to the weekend, all I could think about was, I have to go to work again. I have to see that man again. And you never knew where you stood. I was always on eggshells.
So this would have been about the time that we met then?
Yeah. 2012, yeah. And of course I was doing all of my, well, that's the thing. You don't really want to moan to people either. You don't really want to say, people would be like, oh, how's your job going? And I'll be like, yeah, all right.
I was going to say, then I've made a career out of it, but then I can't, to any of my clients, I'm not saying that you're moaning at me.
Oh, well, yeah. But you just don't want to, you're bored of it happening to yourself. And I just couldn't believe, I just thought, well, is any boss nice? Is there anybody nice out there?
But also when you have a lot of people that are suffering abuse, if they go from one relationship to the next and it's abusive, and then the next and it's abusive, they tend to turn it on themselves and look at themselves and wonder, what am I doing wrong? Am I doing this? Did you go through any of that?
Do you know what? I didn't. I always knew who I was. But what I didn't appreciate, and again, this is why you stop talking about it eventually, is because you almost get the sense that people just don't believe you. They think, nah, you've got to be, there's always a bad penny in the scenario, and it's got to be you, Vicky. You must be a nightmare. That's why you're going from job to job. I used to get the sense that, and my mum and my boyfriend were the only people who truly knew what was going on, and me, obviously. But you just, whether other people were thinking this, I don't know, but you know what human nature's like. You do think, no smoke without fire. You couldn't possibly have gone from one bad boss to another bad boss. Oh, and then another bad boss. That's just unheard of, but it's not unheard of. And I think after I had got the third boss, I ended up, so I left evil Jekyll and Hyde, odd bod older guy. And I got another job thinking I was finally saved. And again, you just couldn't make it up. But he turned out to be a different kind of bully. He was a mood swingy, would speak to me one day, totally ignore me the next, and then was very passive aggressive in meetings and would give me work to do that I had no experience of. Yeah. But then wouldn't train me on it, but then would pull me up on it in meetings in front of senior members of staff just so he could swear at me. And
just because power. Sort of.
Yeah. He just weird. And the first two bad bosses, so PR guy, then older guy, all of those experiences, I'd never had a break in between these bad bosses. I had always been chasing my tail thinking, well, I have to have a new job. I can't possibly have time out to get my health back together because, of course, I couldn't afford it. I always had to have a job. So I never, ever recovered. So I think slowly I'd been battered down mentally. And so when I got to this third boss, I walked out after 4 weeks. And that was my original sort of story when I said I just picked up my bag and said bye to the people in the office, left, knowing that I would never go back again. Yeah. And it was that night that I ended up going back to my flat. And I can remember just lying on the floor in tears. And I said, I don't care that I've walked out. I don't care that I don't have another job to go to, because quite frankly, I just don't want to be here if This is what life's like. I couldn't imagine what I was going to do, but at that moment in time, I didn't care. I had got to rock bottom. So yeah.
You had some heavy weights on your shoulders.
Yeah.
And back then, we would have been, I should say we were in a band together. So we were quite close. And we were pouring emotion into songs and stuff like that. And yet I had no idea.
Yeah. And do you know what? Because I'm the type of person that I deal with it myself. I don't need and do you know what? I really appreciated what I was doing external to that. I really appreciated the fact that I had an outlet. And it's not like we did loads. We weren't gigging all the time, were we?
No,
so
but we had such a laugh when we did that.
Oh, because I love laughing. This is who I am. I'm a gregarious, fun. I love life. I love laughing, which is why it was so weird for me to be going through what I was going through. Because it just made me, I don't understand why people have to be that way. And I'm really soft. I'm really emotional as well. You know, I'm sensitive. And I think a lot of the time you almost tell yourself, well, you can't be sensitive. But why? Since when was being sensitive a bad thing? You know, surely I can still do a job and do it well as a PA, but not have to put up with being bullied or abused. But yeah, we had an amazing time. And I mean, that was just fun to me. Blooming fun, you know, we used to just giggle and sing, and I used to forget the lyrics.
As did I. I used to have a pad on the floor with the first line of every verse.
I used to think you were so professional, though. I used to think, God, Richard's on it, he's got it, he knows what he's doing. And I always used to think, if I forget it, at least I'll look at Richard and it'll fill in for me. And you did.
In my last gig with my current band, I forgot the whole verse. The songs and just stood laughing.
I love that you just stood laughing. See, I was too embarrassed, though. It scared me to death doing live thing. This is the weird thing about me. You're brilliant at just standing there and singing and really giving it all, and your performances. Whereas I was petrified because I don't like looking people in the eye from a stage.
See, that's so funny because I'm the same.
Oh, you wouldn't think it.
So you're looking at me and I'm looking at you thinking the exact opposite.
Oh, wow, no. I hated it. I felt sick as a dog before doing any performance because I hated it. Whereas acting, get me on a stage where I'm in that bubble on the stage and I don't have to look at the audience. I love it. Don't care.
Exactly,
I'm not nervous
the same
at all.
reason as well. I hate having to make eye contact and stuff like that. If I'm on a stage with lights, it's better because I can't see.
You're blinded, aren't you? You could be singing to anybody or
at.
thousands.
so it's almost. I mean, the other week I said earlier before we press record, I was interviewing Ian Dale on a stage, and it was fine because the lights were on me. But then halfway through, we brought up the house lights so we could take questions from the audience.
Whoa.
And that's when it was like, oh, okay, there's people sat there. There's people watching us. And it's that moment when you can see them and you can look into their eyes and you know, you can see what's going on in the real world, that you think, oh Jesus. And that is when I used to look at you and think, okay, I'm with Vicky, it's fine.
How funny. Honestly, I was thinking exactly the same. And I was thinking, Richard's so professional. I'm just a wreck. I don't know what to do.
I was thinking the same about you. How weird is that?
There you go. But that's the thing. I could never have been a solo artist. My God. If I'd been with a girl band, I would have been great. Would have loved it.
Yeah.
If solo artists, hats off to them, because I think that is flipping scary. Flipping scary.
Well, my next band after our band was similar setup, me and a female. And then my band now is just me up front. But with the three guys behind me, they are amazing musicians.
Aww.
And I look to them for the same thing now. If I'm feeling a bit nervous, I look across to Bernie, or I look the other way to David on the bass, who's never doing anything because he's a bass player. So I can just like catch his eyesight. Sorry, bass players, I'm only joking.
Oh, well, there you go. We've learned something new today, Richard, that we were both really, really scared.
we
both thought each other was we were really, really positive and full of energy and happiness, and actually I was scared to death.
But I still did walk away thinking, oh, that was a really good night. That was really fun. Once it's over, it's like getting off a roller coaster. Once it's over, I want to go on that again. Go on then.
There is nothing like that feeling, is there? You're just exhilarated. It's the adrenaline. You come off and it's it's a strange thing, isn't it, performing? Anyone who performs, it's a strange feeling, because you wonder why you do it to yourself, because you're so full of nervous energy and excitement, but nerves, to the point where, you know, famously some people are sick still before they go on stage. I think, didn't Judi Dench say that she still vomits before she goes on stage? I'm like, why would you put yourself through it?
suffers really bad with stage fright as well.
And I can remember, I do get that sort of nervous feeling if I've ever been on stage and I'm about to go on, and I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing this to myself for? But then you love it at the same time.
Yeah, and I tell you what was really weird, and I actually texted my mum when I was doing that interview with Ian Dale, that was a last minute thing, so I didn't have time to prepare properly or anything like that. I texted my mum and I said, Mum, there's something weird. She said, what? And I said, I'm not shaking and I don't feel nervous and I feel like I should be. And it was really weird, because for the first time I knew I was going out onto a stage in front of, 200 people, and stepping out of my comfort zone, but I didn't feel like I was, and I thought there's something wrong here. So I don't know what it was, but it was very weird. And then I realised that I kind of like that nervous energy, because it makes me feel like that's how I should be feeling.
I think it also gives you an element of sharpness, doesn't it, as well, though? Suddenly you can be sort of nervous to the point where you think you can't even think about the most basic of facts about yourself. Like, the words have gone in your head and you think, oh my God, it's all going to go wrong. And then as soon as it's like, right, action, or whatever it may be, suddenly that adrenaline forces you to be sharp, and it suddenly just comes to you.
I just had a memory. I just had a memory of what we used to do before gigs. I won't even say it on here.
Oh, but, God, what did we used to do?
I'm going to tell you
what did we used to do?
It was something that you used to help me with the
What? I've no idea what you're talking about now.
With my
did
names. I won't say it on here.
My God, what did I do for you, Richard?
It did the job.
Whoa!
Let's just say that. What did I
give you?
So
booze?
What did you
I don't want to know. What did I used to do? A massage?
Oh, I wish. I love a massage.
What did I used to bloody do?
I can't say it on here. I'll tell you later.
Give you an electric shock with a cattle prod?
That was it, Aunt Lydia. Do you watch Handmaid's Tale?
No.
Oh, okay. So that
totally gone flat for me.
Oh, it's amazing. You've got to watch it. You've got to watch
it. Oh, you've changed the subject now, Richard. I still don't know what I used to do.
I'm going to tell you as soon as we finished.
What the hell?
But I don't think I can say it on here.
I am lost, genuinely lost as to what it was.
That's how bad it is. I can't say it on here. I'll say anything else on here, but I can't say that.
The only thing I can ever think that I used to do, but I couldn't help it, was, I know I won't say that either. It makes me seem makes me seem very unladylike if I say it.
I used to got what you were going to say. Now I've just understood that, but I thought you were going to say something else. Anyway, back to the horrible bosses.
Yeah.
You finished with you were with the third one. You walked out the third one. What was your next process in writing this book? Where did you go from there?
So I needed time out for my head, for my mental bloody health, because I was just in a mess. So I think I just phoned and said I wasn't well, I couldn't come in, I needed to buy myself some time. I actually did go and see a GP and I explained everything, and they were so sympathetic, and they said, right, we're signing you off. So thankfully I was signed off. And, strangely enough, when I told them I was signed off because of anxiety and I explained why, the third boss, had got wind of it and was trying to phone me, leaving messages saying, I'm so sorry, please come back. Oh, real panic. Panic. Like, oh dear. And I was like, no, don't want to talk to you. Please stop calling me. Anyway, I took a few days and I actually just ended up pottering in central London, just going on my own, just being out in the big wide world and just contemplating what I was going to do next. And it was when I was chatting to an old colleague of mine who had been at the PR firm, the first bad boss, and I was explaining sort of what was going on to her, and she said, look, why don't you just temp? And I said, oh God, I can't go back to temping. I've not done that in years. And she said, but surely if you temp, you can walk away if the boss isn't what you want. Mm-hmm. And that's the beauty of temping. And I thought, you know what, maybe. And it took a while for me to sort of come around to the idea, because I was so used to having that safety net of a permanent job. And of course, with temping, you think, well, I might only get an assignment for 2 weeks, then I might not have work for 2 weeks. So there's a bit of a risk, you know, especially if you've committed, as I had by then, to a mortgage and X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought, sod it, I'm doing it. And who knows whether it was meant to be or fate or whatever it is, but the first temping assignment that came in was working for a man who, up until the point I walked into the office, had gone through a succession of PAs, not because he was a horrible boss, but because they'd just been sending him the wrong type of PA. And they just hadn't worked out. So he was a little bit sort of suspicious, you know, not suspicious, what's the word? He was, what's the word, Richard? I can't think. When you're not sort of, I can't think. My brain's gone mad. Anyway, he just wasn't putting all of his eggs in one basket. He was holding back. He was sort of looking at me from afar and wondering. Yeah. And I was sort of, you know, holding back as well, because I'd been burnt. I didn't want a git of a boss. I just wanted a nice person to work for. And it just so happened that it worked out. And I think after about 3 weeks, he sort of said to me, yeah, I like you. I think you're good. And I went, yeah, I like you too. I think you're good. And he was just fantastic. He was the most amazing man I'd ever worked for. And he had respect. He was friendly. He was funny. He needed me. He actually used me. He trusted me. He gave me work to do, and I thrived.
So
and I loved.
You
Gosh, yeah. Because if you look back at all the other times I'd been a PA, it's almost as if they didn't need a PA. They just wanted someone to just abuse.
Status.
Yeah.
Something to sort of like say to their friends, oh, I'll get my PA to do it.
Yeah. And it was like, I'm sorry, but I am not just some Dumbo who sits there flicking through magazines and Facebook and is happy to get paid and just file my nails. That's an awful stereotype I've just done there.
But you just described me.
Well, exactly, Richard. But I actually wanted to work. I need to be active so that I feel part of life and the fabric of society. I want to be active. And he gave me work to do. And the more he gave me, the better I became. And the better I became, the more impressed he became. And it all just worked out. And it was fantastic. And it was then, whilst I was relaxing, in those quieter moments when I would go home or I'd be sitting on the train, that I thought, you know what? This is what it feels like. This is what I hope for most people. This is what working is like. You do your job, you get paid, you walk away from your job and you have your own life, and you don't let work infiltrate your free time to the extent where it's making you anxious about it. And that's all it was ever doing to me in the other jobs. I didn't have my own life when I left the office. I was ill, essentially, you know, having to drink my pain away. You know, from bullying bosses, and suddenly I had this really great guy and my life felt settled and nice and normal. So that's when I started writing. And as I said, I think I started writing, and I think I'd done however many words you need, 70,000 words. I'd done it in about a month.
Oh, wow. Okay.
If not less than.
Wow.
Like the rough first draft of a book anyway. And I remember thinking, well, maybe people do want to read this. And I sent out the first sort of manuscript to loads of publishers. And of course, a lot of them don't want, you know, unsolicited stuff. You know, you have to come through an agent or whatever. And I sent it out and I got no's across the board. Polite no's, you know, just, yes, thanks very much. Interesting, but we don't think it's interesting enough as a story. And then I was slightly disheartened, but I wasn't that bothered because, you know, my life was okay at this time and I was quite happy. And it was my boyfriend that actually turned around and said, why don't you just self-publish? I've been thinking about this. Don't let that go to waste. You know, someone might read it. And I was a bit sort of, oh, it's a bit naff. I don't want to self-publish. Oh, no, that's for losers. And he said, no, it's not. You self-publish. Loads of people self-publish. So thankfully, he encouraged me, and I actually self-published. And it was only recently I realised I actually published it on the 4th of July, which was quite apt, really.
Yeah.
So I published through a company called Lulu, which is an American sort of publishing online thing. Mm-hmm. Anyway, someone got wind of it who I used to work with, who then passed it on to somebody else. And then this particular ex-colleague got in touch and said, ooh, my boss wants to send it to one of her journalist friends. They think it would be a really good, sort of secret squirrel, woman about town, secret diary. Because I think there's a chap called Geraint Anderson. Is that his name? He did City Boy. He did sort of a thing in one of the Free London papers over a while.
It rings a bell.
It was like a weekly thing, and he used to do sort of like a secret column about what was really going on with all these city boys. So this colleague said, oh, you should do this. And I was petrified, and I went, no, because I was still scared of a couple of these bosses. I really was scared. Oh, yeah, I thought, oh, God, no. Although I've changed the names, if it gets out and they know it's me, I didn't know what they could do. Mm-hmm. And so I was adamant, no, but it did appear. So a small piece appeared in the Sunday Times business thing, and it said, oh, quietly, an ebook has been released. Do you know who these guys are? And the focus from them was on the two PR guys because, of course, they were known to the journalists. And so the next thing was I got a phone call to say the Times would like to do a piece on you in the business section, but, a bigger piece. And I was a bit sort of, hesitant, and I was like, oh, I don't know. Anyway, I think we started talking about it at the beginning of a particular day. And by the end of the day, they said it's actually going to be page 3 of the regular paper, the Times. Wow. And I was excited and nervous in equal amounts.
Yeah.
I just did not know how this was going to pan out. And I didn't want it to ruin the job that I had. Anyway, I appeared next day, full page 3 of the Times. There I was, all about me slating all of these bosses. And I actually phoned my then boss, who I loved, and I said, I am really sorry, but I'm on page 3 of the Times today. And I told him why, and he burst out laughing and he went, I think you're brilliant.
Yes.
And I loved him. And I'm sure it was a major shock for him. And I'm sure he didn't want it to be happening. But he was so lovely because he also championed the fact that I was different, that I was quirky, that I was, willing to put something out there. And I said, I can assure you, the only mention of you or this current company is to say how brilliant you are and how much fun I'm having. And that was the truth. So there you go. So, and off the back of that, oh God, it went crazy. I had a double page spread in The Sun. I was in the Evening Standard. I was in French Grazia magazine. I appeared on television. Woman's Hour wanted to interview me. And then I think I was in the Daily Mail, and then the Daily Mail phoned and wanted me to serialise it. And I had no guidance. I had no one looking out for me. I had a PR company that I'd used years before for a venture that I'd tried to sort of set up. And I said to them, because the Sunday Times said, we want to do an exclusive, but you can't do anything in any other paper or, radio or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I spoke to the PR company and I said, well, what should I do? I'm being offered all these amazing things. And they went, well, no brainer. Sunday Times exclusive. It's huge. You should do that. And I feel to this day it was a bit of a trap. And I'm wondering whether the guy who was the horrible boss, who was the PR guy, actually set this up. Because I did say no to everybody else, all the nice things like Woman's Hour. It would have been amazing, Woman's Hour, female magazine, for the Daily Mail. I said no to all of that because I went for an exclusive on the advice of someone else, and I was thrown under the bus. It was one of the most horrible pieces ever by a male journalist.
Oh, God.
And it was exclusive. And on the face of it, you might think, oh, look, you know, here I am in the paper with all this press, but I was in tears. It was horrible. I felt scared again. So it's almost as if, you know, I'd gone through all this bullying at the hands of male bosses. And as soon as I write about it and stand up for myself, it was all male journalists who tried to slate me for having done it. Yeah. So I had it all again. And the weird thing is, if I had done that during more modern times, you know, hashtag me too,
yeah,
I would have been much better, I'm sure. But it was, yeah, horrible, horrible, horrible. So it's sort of bittersweet that I wrote a book and it did really well, but actually I got slated for even writing it.
Yeah, but well
so
done,
yeah.
though. Well done.
Thanks.
Stand
Do you know what I'm really proud of, though?
Stand up for other women. And like you said earlier on, if it helps one person.
Oh, yeah. It's just to say, look, I've been there. Loads of people have been there. And not everyone is like that. Not every boss is like that. But I know lots of them are still like that out there. I hope the world's gotten a little bit better. I hope it has. And that people are more sort of, you know, accountable for the way they are and the way they behave with their staff and, well, just relationships in general, really.
Well, yeah. I mean, it instantly has just made me think of the bullying story with Priti Patel that got overlooked. And makes me wonder about things like that.
Yeah.
You know, right in the centre of the world, basically, and right in the glare of everyone. You know, bullying's fine, almost.
Yeah. Sadly,
across the board, not just Priti Patel. You know, across the board.
Yeah. Sadly, people will always get away with it if they are high enough, if they are powerful enough, if they can pay someone off, they will always try and get away with it.
Yeah. So, what's next for the book?
So, I actually wrote the screenplay for a movie.
That is so exciting.
Well, I left it for quite a while. I mean, the book came out, so my version came out as an ebook 2013. I think the actual book was published. Oh no, the book was published as a new name. So the PA's story came out in 2015. Yeah. And so not that long ago, is it? Sort of 5-6 years. But about a year ago, I completed the first draft of the screenplay. I actually had a producer. I had an option agreement, but for a very short amount of time, and it actually ran out, and then somebody else wanted to work on it. So I currently do have a producer who wants to get it made, but we need money. So we're at that stage.
Get back to Wigan. Ask the council.
Oh my God, Wigan Council. If you're listening, Wigan Council, come on.
Do your job.
Here's your chance to get involved in a movie.
Bloody good.
So yeah, basically we're looking for funding, development funding, because I've got a producer and I've got the screenplay, and there you go. And it's just gone. The Galway Film Festival has just been happening over the last week, and so my producer was attending that and hopefully having a couple of meetings with people about getting some money together. So there you go. I'm just waiting.
So exciting.
It is, but I didn't realise how slow the movie and film industry and TV industry works. But then we have just had a pandemic. Go on, what are you going to say?
I was just going to say that how like a good storyteller you are, and you kept saying, "Oh, I don't want to bore you with this, and I don't want to bore you with that," and I'm absolutely riveted.
Oh, I love you. Thanks, Richard. You're my friend.
You know, you're. I hate saying you're an old friend because it sounds wrong. You're a friend that I've known for a long time.
I know.
And I'm so excited for you. That sounds just amazing. I mean,
well, if it happens, let's just hope it does.
It was amazing. Sorry, what were you going to say?
I know. No, I'm just saying, if it happens, let's just hope it does. But yeah, I think loads of people get things off the ground, but it's always to do with the development and the money, isn't it? You know, finding the cash.
Yeah, and through all of that, there's this undercurrent struggle, well, almost an overcurrent struggle with your mental health, that it had to be kind of pushed back just so you could cope.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Quite strong female people almost laugh at, oh, you don't want to go on antidepressants early on. You're the GP and the first boss.
Actually, yeah, you're right. I never thought about it, but it was two females that said that. Yeah.
So
How
maybe,
interesting.
somebody that you're looking up to, somebody that you're looking to and thinking, powerful women. Oh, hang on. Oh, I shouldn't be going on those. I shouldn't be
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah.
It beggars belief, really. But
Mhm.
is that looking at it with 2021 eyes? I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. I don't
Possibly.
know. I just love the fact that we are able to talk about this. And I tell you what, if this had been a decade ago, I would no more have openly, spoken to people about antidepressants and me being on them. But now I'm like, do you know what? You need to talk about it
Mm,
because there isn't anything shameful about any of this. But
mm,
I think that when you're in it, when you're genuinely suffering from either anxiety or depression, and especially anxiety, that's a bugger.
yeah.
It really, really makes you feel that you are the only person suffering and you
Mm,
feel embarrassed
mm-hmm.
because you think everyone else is getting on and they're normal and I'm a freak. I
And
am a
yeah,
freak.
and society doesn't help with that.
No.
I'm a mental health counsellor, and I was on antidepressants 3 months ago,
Mm-hmm.
so till quite recently.
Yeah.
It was only a short course, and it was
Yeah.
for like I said before, my mum's been quite ill, so
Yeah.
I needed that hit because I was going to a dark place, and I knew I was
Yeah.
going to that dark place. But it just goes to show that, well, I suppose more people need to speak up and say, me too.
Yeah.
I've been on them. I've been in a place where I needed them, and I reached out for help because I knew. I suppose with the circles that I'm in, I knew that it was available and I knew that I
Yeah.
could. But there's plenty of people that don't know that, or they're being guided by the wrong people, like your old boss, like
Yeah.
the GP. And I suppose with therapists as well, if you've got a GP that's not working for you, go and find another one.
Yeah.
There is a choice, and
Oh,
same with
absolutely.
therapists. There's so many people that go to
Absolutely.
counselling and they say, "Oh no, it didn't work for me." Try a new counsellor. You'll find
Yeah.
someone that just fits, and no counsellor worth their salt will feel offended if you say, "No, this isn't working." They will be
Yeah.
bloody happy that you are
Yeah.
getting the right therapy for you.
Yeah, exactly that. If they are professional, they absolutely will. And I think what I was going to say also, I think a lot of the time it's important for people like you and I to say, hang on a minute, yeah, me too, I'm on
Mm-hmm.
antidepressants, because a lot of the time when people would learn this about me, and I'm pretty sure it's the same for you, because you, in my opinion, are very outgoing, very
Mm-hmm.
bubbly, giggly, whatever, a lot of people who aren't necessarily like that will look at people like you and I and think, what? You
Yeah.
suffered from mental health issues? But I always thought you were so happy and so this and so
Mm-hmm.
that. Because it just goes to show we're good at putting a face on.
Well, look at the big comedians. The biggest
Oh,
comedians
I
are
know.
always the ones that once they've gone, or well, look at
Yeah,
Robin Williams,
I know. But
and
even more recently, and this is what made me think about it, even more so recently, Caroline Flack. When
mm,
I watched the documentary about her
mm-hmm,
and I was in absolute tears at the end of it by what her mum had said,
mm,
that I think she said that Caroline was so ashamed or embarrassed. She was so aware that how she was really on the inside, she was so petrified of that getting out to the wider world because she feared she would be ridiculed or she would lose her job, her career. How sad that she would far rather go down the route that she sadly took than actually feel that she was able to just be honest about who she was.
yeah,
And it's because when you are genuinely suffering, you feel it's the last thing you can say to anyone or tell anyone. And I
exactly, yeah,
think although we're getting better at saying we need to talk about mental health, I think sometimes that comes from people who don't really ever suffer from it. And I
mm-hmm,
think a lot of companies potentially sometimes say we need to be aware of it, but then they don't really do much else after Mental
yeah,
Health Awareness Week.
mm-hmm,
And I think you need to be doing something all the time because people do suffer and they suffer in silence.
yeah. I mean, Mental Health Awareness Week does a good job of bringing it to the forefront, but it does need to be there more. It does need to be
Yeah,
there all the time.
yeah,
And I think you're right. More people need to speak out that do give off the impression that they're happy, that they're jolly, that they're successful sometimes.
yeah,
And you get so many people, yeah, like you say, saying, "Oh, well, what have you got to be sad about?" Or
yeah,
other cliches like that. And
yeah,
yet, you know, we're out there in every walk of life. You know, it's not the first time that I've suffered about a depression. You know, a few months ago, I have had depression in the past, and yet I always had this outward persona, I suppose, the Caroline Flack. You know, but it's just sad that we're living in a world where we can't put our head above the parapet. And then this is one of the main reasons that I started this podcast, because I want to say to people, if you can't admit to people that you're feeling this or feeling that, then just at least talk to people, even if it's just a chat, a natter. It all helps. And that was my ethos with this. It's, you know, I'm talking to so many different people, and we have so many different types of chat and different types of conversation, but it all helps, and it does, because you just say you're getting what's inside on the out, and you're just putting it out there, and you can reorder it better once it's outside.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
I think what you're doing is amazing. I think it's fantastic. I really think it's brilliant. Keep it going.
What you've done is amazing. You've put it in a book, and you've said, "Fuck you guys."
Bullies. I did as well. There's a lot of swearing in it. A lot of swearing. Oh.
Perfect. Brilliant. This
made me feel good anyway, getting it all off my bloody chest.
This is it.
Big two fingers to those tossers, I tell you.
I tell you now, I'm sat here thinking, what an inspiration this lady is.
Oh, I love you.
And no, it really, genuinely, this has been a revelation and a pleasure. And you are such, and have been such a busy woman. And all the time I've known you, you have been so full of life. I feel a little bit of guilt, to be honest, that I didn't know what you were going through.
Don't be silly. But I was fine. I'm always fine. I'm lucky because I'm quite strong inside. I will always look to get myself better.
Yeah.
And like you said earlier about you recognised something was happening, so you made that decision to go on antidepressants. If in the past I have recognised patterns and I thought, oh, hang on a minute, I've gone and got myself help straight away because I know. But the first time it happens to you, you have no idea what's happening. And that's when it's scary. If depression or anxiety suddenly starts creeping in, that's when you're right. If you're not feeling that you can talk to someone close to you, then at least know that there are people like you or people on the internet or, you know, forums or organisations that you can drop into anonymously at first if you are feeling shameful or embarrassed. There is nothing to be ashamed about, but at least let's get people going to these, you know, these organisations for help.
Yeah, and it's not a sign of weakness; it's a sign of strength.
You're not kidding. Of course it is. Massively. I'm super strong. Massively. Yeah, so are you.
You just have to listen to your story to know that.
Yeah.
That, you know, to go and get the help has taken strength and courage.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So totally. I will thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining me today.
Thank you. It's been fun. I loved it.
It's been absolutely lovely, and we can't leave it that long again because I've really had a good laugh, and I really want to know who this fashion designer is. So I'm going to call an end to these proceedings, and I'm also.
And I want to know what the hell I used to do to you before a gig that relaxed you, Richard. My God.
I'm sure everyone will want to know that, but I can't be telling anyone. So I will bid you farewell for now.
Thank you.
And on the other side, I will hear about who this fashion designer is.
Yes, you will.
Again, thank you very much, Victoria.
No worries.
What's the book called again?
So the ebook from Lulu, I don't think you can get it anywhere else anymore, is The PA, but the actual paperback book is The PA's Story.
You can still get it.
You can get The PA's Story from anywhere.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay.
It's the ebook. It's the ebook. If you've got a Kindle, I think it's just Lulu.
Okay. Perfect. Well, there you go. Victoria Knowles, it's been a pleasure. Please give my love to your boyfriend, who you didn't name. Well,
he's my husband now.
Your husband, sorry. Yeah, your now husband. Well, I knew him when he was your boyfriend.
Indeed.
Take care of yourself.
You too. Lots of love.
Speak soon.
Bye.
Well, we will speak in about 30 seconds.
Yeah. See you later.
Bye, lovely listener.
Bye.